Hello everybody, Natalia here, and I am back for a new video. I am excited for a few different reasons. Number one, I am feeling so much better. My throat doesn't hurt, my head doesn't hurt, I'm not sniffling and sneezing everywhere, so I'm really happy to be feeling better. And thank you to everybody that sent me kind of well wishes in the comments on YouTube. I really do appreciate that, and I definitely think it helped boost me back to health. That is the first reason I'm excited. The second is because I have recently reached 1,000 subscribers. Thank you everybody so much for supporting me and subscribing to my channel and helping me along the way to get to where I am now. In celebration of my 1,000 subscribers, I'm going to do a casual Q&A. If you have any questions for me regarding writing, editing, reading, books, the way I market my books, the way I got my book into a bookstore, my art, my lifestyle, anything really. If you have any questions that you would like for me to answer, please either comment down below, you can send me a message, you can contact me on Facebook, Twitter, or Tumblr. I'm going to link all of my social media down below. So that is the second reason I'm excited. And the third reason I'm excited is because I have a how to write your novel world building video today. So without further ado, let's get into it. Alright, now everybody builds their worlds differently, and everybody is going to give you different advice and tips and tricks for it. I approach world building from a bit more of a kind of personal standpoint, which I will get to and I will explain to you. First, I'm going to go through just kind of the basics of world building, and then I will bring it all together and let you know exactly how I do it and which method I have found to be most successful. Alright, to begin with, I always have an image in mind when I am building a setting, a world, a town, etc. It doesn't matter if you are building a fantasy world or if you're building a small town in Louisiana. Like, it doesn't matter if it's fantasy, contemporary, sci-fi, etc. You need to have images and feelings in mind before you start to write this setting. In my novel Way of Spears, there is a city called Kayenta, and I based Kayenta loosely off of kind of Egypt and India. So, before I started writing this setting, I went onto Pinterest and I made a Pinterest board just called Kayenta, and then I searched a bunch of images and I really gathered up all those images and I put them into that Pinterest board so that whenever I was writing Kayenta and I needed a bit of an inspiration boost, or I needed to feel like I was more immersed in the world and needed to return to it, I could just always go to that Pinterest board, look at those photos and images that I had collected, and boom, I was right back in that setting. My second tip is to immerse your reader and yourself as much as possible by using all 5 of your senses. For example, what kind of temperature is it outside? What kind of weather are they having? What do they smell when they walk down the street? Do they smell exhaust fumes like I would smell if I went walking down the street outside the house? Or are they going to smell yeast and freshly baked bread because they're walking through a market square? What are the kinds of things that they're going to feel? Is it really dry out? Do they have to wear maybe a mask or a veil over their face to keep the dust particles out of their lungs? Is it extremely cold and icy and snowy and they have to have boots and they feel the freezing air hitting their face? You know, all of these details, all of these sensory details are extremely important when you're building a world because it makes the reader feel like they can dive right into it and like they are right there with your characters. My third tip is to spend a lot of time getting to know the culture of your world. There's a lot that goes into culture. For example, you'll want to know the religion, traditions, the rituals, the belief systems of these people in your novel. If you are building a fantasy world, you're going to have a bit more work to do, especially if you have maybe different races or a magic system. You'll want to know the history of those races. Have they been at war? Are there alliances? How did this world come together? Those are things that you need to have figured out before you go into writing this novel. How does the magic work? Who has it? How much power do they have? How do they get the power? Can they lose the power? Is it spoken word? Do you have to speak the spells like in Harry Potter, for example? Or is it just kind of inherent magic that you can just spout fire from your fingertips? Like, know these details moving forward with your story, especially if you are building a fantasy world. Also, I have heard this tip spoken by many authors and I definitely live by it. you want to know more than you're necessarily telling your readers. For example, I know what my main character takes in her coffee, I know what her favorite color is, I know what her favorite animal is, I know all these little kind of intricacies about her, even though I'm not telling the reader what those are. So it's important to know this about your world as well. What kind of laws do these citizens have to abide by? How did these laws come into place? Who are the government officials? How is the, city or town or world or planet kind of run and governed? All these things are really important to know, even if you don't necessarily come out and tell your reader, hey, I have to give you all this information, because they don't always need it, but it's important for you to have it so that you can write your world as truthfully and legitimately as possible. All right, now this last tip, my fourth tip, is going to be kind of my personal relationship with world building and how I go about it. So, let's just say that you're writing a contemporary and you've been under the belief that you don't have to do much world building because we already understand this world. That's not true at all, because the way I live and the way I experience this world is completely different from the neighbors that live 30 feet across the street, all right? Each one of us has a certain special relationship with our world that nobody else has. For example, in this world we're living in now, there could be somebody that grew up extremely privileged. Maybe they have never really wanted for anything. That is the way that they experience the world. And the way they experience it will be extremely different from somebody that grew up in poverty or grew up with very little. Maybe this person knows what it's like to go hungry at night. They know what it's like to stress and worry about not being able to pay your bills every month or living from paycheck to paycheck. These two people could live in the same place. Maybe they even live in the same city, 15 minutes apart, but their worlds are completely different. World building is not just about the setting outside. It's not just about, how many miles from this city to that city, and can I draw this map and figure out where all the buildings are? While that stuff is important, just to know kind of the layout of your setting and of your city or your world, it's not the most important. For me, the most important is always the way that my characters personally interact with the world they're in. If I could give you one really big tip when it comes to world building, it would be to interact with it through your characters on the most personal basis that you can. Everybody experiences the world differently, and in order to tell your story as truthfully as possible, you need to really know how your character interacts with the world, whether it's contemporary, sci-fi, fantasy, paranormal, etc. It doesn't matter. All that really matters is what builds their world and how they interact with it and how you are going to show that to your readers. So I know that I kind of flew through these tips really fast, and one of the reasons for that is because I know that there is a ton of information out there on kind of the nitty-gritty of world building, but really I just wanted to communicate to you how important I find it to get to know the characters in the world on a personal basis and getting really as up close and personal with them as possible. I think that will do wonders for your novel. So again, I am taking questions for a casual Q&A, so hit me up if you have any that you would like me to answer. Thank you again for watching my videos and supporting me. I really appreciate it, and I will catch you in the next one. All right, bye!